Hello, WonderCon. Welcome to the first annual Behind the Cut post-production and film and TV panel, brought to you by Impact 24 and the California Post Alliance, which is an organization that I'm a board member of. We're a trade organization, and we're made up of post-production creatives like the ones you see up here. They're not members yet, but I'm going to convert them by the end of the day, is my hope. And businesses. We've got two missions. Our first one is to pass a post-production specific tax credit for the state of California. This is a big deal for us. New York has one. Other jurisdictions have one. We have the greatest talent in the world in post-production here in California, and we need to have parity so they can work. This is about jobs and jobs and jobs. We've got a bill already. Our first hearing is on April 27th. It's AB 2319. If you're into post-production, join us. Come talk to me afterwards. I'd love to talk to you. Our second mission is to build and foster an inclusive post-production community that encourages collaboration and working together around education. Post-production is an incredible apprentice program. I was trained and mentored by people who took me under their wing. I'm sure that's the same for everybody up here. I'm so excited to be here today with all of you and these amazing creatives, so let's go ahead and jump right in. This one is for Chris, Daysha, and John, our editors. When you first step into post-production, what are you looking for in the footage to begin shaping your story? Is it performances or structure, tone, actors, something else?
For me, it always starts with what feels real in the footage. The moments that reveal truly who someone is. On a show like Project Runway, we're very much leaning into the personalities, the relationships, and how those dynamics unfold over the course of the show. The new version of Project Runway under the new Disney, Hulu, and Freeform umbrella, there's been a shift in the show becoming a bit more character-driven. So we're able to focus a little bit more on those interpersonal moments to really, tell us the story, essentially. A great example is early on, we saw the dynamic between BJ and the Stradivarius had natural friction. So we sort of just let that natural friction play out, and that eventually led us into the story and telling it how it truly unfolded.
That's great. That's great. Yeah, I was going to jump in and say they're wonderful getting along together, their pleasant relationship. Not the case. Daysha, go ahead.
I kind of go back and forth working in documentary and working in narratives, features, and television. And so the approach is different on each project. For something like the AI documentary, it was very much about structure first, like trying to figure out how we were going to tell kind of the biggest story of our time right now.
Right.
The most relevant story, that's something that's affecting everybody right now. In a way that was digestible to people who aren't rich, people who are just going to go watch the movie because they're concerned about something.
Right.
So it was initially walking into the cutting room with, we had a great archivist, Leah, who I'm sure just got on her nerves with the amount of requests I had for clips. And, we went as far back as we could to find early machine learning examples and things like that. And then had to try to figure out how to create a narrative through line through the documentary, something that could ground people, something that they could hold on to. And that character is our director, Daniel. And so then it was like, okay, I have structure, at least the first structure. I think I cut 32 openings of this movie.
Wow.
But at least when I had the first structure, then it became about character and performance, which there wasn't performance because it's just Daniel asking these questions. But I was able to shape a performance by using cutaways that we had to him and asking the crew, hey, next time you guys go shoot the next interview, can you get more of him so that I can use it? Because I'm trying to build a character out of him.
Fascinating.
He's kind of our audience. He is the audience, and he is us asking these questions. So I needed more, shots of him and reactions of him and things like that.
That's wild. What I think that's so interesting, especially about that documentary, is how much even the ground is shifting underneath while you're, not only are you building a story out of parts, but the actual text underneath you is shifting really
the
quickly.
news is constantly changing every day. I think I started on this picture 2024 is when I started. And, you know, the different versions of ChatGPT that were coming out, even at that time, like it wasn't as advanced as it is now, but it was still so advanced.
Yeah.
And so we're constantly trying to keep up with the news and be relevant and current. So we're just constantly cutting all the time.
Right, right. And now, John, when you're coming in from someplace that's more structured, you've got a scripts.
The first thing I do is I read the script again. I mean, obviously, I read the script at that point, but
right.
when I start working on dailies for a scene, first thing I do is reread the script, and then the second thing I do is I just start watching the dailies and I create a selects reel.
Okay.
And I'm looking for the moments of magic.
Right.
So it's the performances that feel authentic, that feel natural, that have the tonal energy that I'm looking for. I just try to watch it and see what instinctually stands out to me, and I assemble all of that into a big reel, and then I go back and I start putting the scene together, and I keep going back to that reel of magic, the selects, and that's where the special sauce is. One of the things that I love about working in the Star Trek universe is that we have a really big sandbox. We have visual effects, we have ADR, we have people in rubber masks, we have and to that end, we also have a very specific structure to our sandbox. And the boundaries of the Star Trek franchise are very clear,
right.
And they're important to keep track of. So within the bounds of that sandbox, I get to kind of play and look for those little special moments and how can I weave them all together. I've worked on a lot of different genres and a lot of different shows over the years, and I tend to skew towards stories about science fiction. I'm really excited about your AI, actually, because I love the intersection of science and technology and the human experience, and whether that's a documentary about where it's actually happening in the world right now, or whether it's the Star Trek stories about what metaphors can we tell about the world we live in through stories about technology. I've kind of gotten sidetracked, but that's my answer. I mean, basically, I'm looking for the little moments of magic for everything.
Yeah, well, I think you touched on something that's really part of the art form of being a creative in post, is to somehow hold on to that initial magic. That first thing you saw, that first thing you heard, that gave you that first spark of an idea, because post-production is a long process. And to keep something fresh over 6 months, a year is agonizing. It can be really hard. So I think that's a good segue over to our composers there. What materials or conversations help you decide where music should begin, and just as importantly, where it shouldn't? And we're talking about right when you start the post-production process. Maybe you've just been brought in, you've seen a cut, the first cut, something like that.
Yeah, I feel like, to me, like, it always starts from the story. Whatever music that we're writing is to serve the vision of the director. So it's very important for me in the beginning to understand the why, like why is the filmmakers telling the story and what they want the music to say. And I find that those conversations, and that happens before I see anything. It's the same for animation or live action. I just want to understand like what is the core of the message. And I always keep that in mind. It becomes kind of like the backbone of every musical decision that I make. To me, it always comes back to the heart of the story.
Right.
And for music, when they come in and when they go out, it's fun conversations we get to have at the spotting sessions with filmmakers, with the editors, like just chatting about where does music make the most impact, emotional impact. And it's the really fun conversation. We get to be in that room with all the creatives.
That's right. The spotting sessions are always a fun day. You order lunch in, everyone gathers around, and you go through the cut and sort of say, the music could come in here, we'll go out here. I'm going to get out of the way because I'm not a composer.
Hi, everyone. I'm so happy to be here. This is my first WonderCon as well, so I'm thrilled to be here. Woohoo! Oh, thank you. Yeah, it's so interesting because as composers, we can be brought on sometimes like the first script, like before anything's shot. So kind of depending on when we're brought in on the process it kind of determines how we interact with the story even. So sometimes I'm brought on like super early on, I'll get the script, they haven't even shot anything yet. And that's a really fun place to start, just have those conversations with the creatives and like what Joy was saying, really understand why people are making and creating these projects.
Right.
And then sometimes we are brought in way later and people have been sitting with their projects for years. They have been developing these stories. They have found like different iterations of the story and really got to sit with it. So they have a really strong vision of exactly what they want. So I think our job as composers is to really meet the creators where they're at and really understand the story and just translate that into music. And that really helps dictate where the music should be and how present it needs to be within the film as well as where it shouldn't be and where we need to let the actors and the performers really shine in those moments.
So great.
Thanks.
The far end of the table has to share a microphone.
Indeed. Hi, everyone. On that note, I surprisingly find myself often advocating for having less music. I think especially when the performances are good on screen, you don't need to have too much. But yeah, as these two have said, like the emotional underpinnings of the story are really the foundation, the starting point. And I think like often we're talking about, I think there are really interesting conversations around whose perspective are you speaking musically from in a scene, like what's the POV? And I think often where we are bringing in music is like to tell something that isn't necessarily obvious on the screen. So, when a character is being deceived or sometimes you're telling something from the audience POV rather than a character POV. You want the audience to feel something that the character doesn't know to feel, or you're sowing these seeds that are more underlying, like the underlying emotional stuff.
I love that kind of iterative description there, where and all of you said it. You start with the script, and in the beginning was the word, but then as the cut comes together, you're putting together more of these sort of parts and interconnective tissue for the audience to enjoy. Now we're gonna roll back into editors here. I got one for you, Chris. Reality shows are often written in the edit. How does Love is Blind really come to life in post-production? And when do you start to see the true narrative of a season taking shape?
Yeah, written in the edit. I mean, Love is Blind is no exception. I mean, the narrative of the seasons gradually evolves over, they emerge over time. We're constantly tracing and recontextualizing every single moment across the pods, the lounges, getaways, the real world, families, to build these cohesive, emotionally charged stories. The process could take months, because we're constantly watching, comparing and reassessing the footage to understand, the participant's true story. A lot of the show is reverse engineered because when we first start, we kind of know the outcome. But what's really fun about working on a show like Love is Blind is that a lot of the backbone emotional elements of the show are actually found in moments that we know really existed, at first glance. We find those moments. We find those subtle conversations, those offhand conversations in the lounges, and then we're able to like trace and start putting the pieces together into how these stories kind of unfold. Actually, it's really interesting. A prime example of this is in season 7. Hannah and Nick, you couldn't really tell their story unless we introduced Leo. And Leo was a character we had never really sort of paid attention to. And it wasn't until we started digging into the footage, we're like, wait, no, he's actually essential to their growth as a couple.
Interesting.
And so those are very, very cool moments for us. Another prime example is that Zach in season 4 built such a strong connection with Irina. And you saw that connection truly blossom in the pods. But it wasn't until she left the pods and you started to see sort of a mean girl persona in the lounges, and we're like, wait a minute, there's more layers to these people.
Right.
So all of those hidden moments, we're constantly looking forward to again give these characters layers. You know, a show like Love Is Blind is a very, very tedious process because we're just watching footage all the time, and we're very lucky and very fortunate to be able to do that.
How many hours do you, sorry to interrupt you, how many hours do you end up with on a season?
A lot. I would say that if we were to just play a couple's conversations during the duration of just in the pods, that is longer than the entire show we have to deliver to.
Wow.
So it's a lot of footage to sift through. So we are very, you know, we're very good about picking all of the moments that truly resonate. You know, our goal is to create a show that is authentic as possible. And the only way to do that is to truly watch every bit of it. And to always follow the truth, because, you know, that's what makes our story feel real, emotional, and earned.
Yeah.
You know, I think there's a real craving for authenticity today. And, you know, shows like Project Runway and Love Is Blind, I think they are, you know, they stand apart because we're able to show real people in these real moments and just let that play out. And that's, if that's how they act, then that's kind of how we're telling the story.
Yeah.
We do not try to force anything. But again, that process can be quite grueling and quite long.
Yeah, I appreciate it. It's a painful process, all of post-production. When you finish, you deliver the movie, and it does feel that way, folks.
You don't force anything.
We do not, you know.
Admirable.
Yeah. Authenticity, you know, we take, you know, I think it's important to acknowledge that we're really lucky to earn the cast's trust as we're building this show. You know, these are real people opening up their hearts in pursuit of finding a partner. And I think we have to handle that responsibility with a lot of care. And we do, you know, we want to make sure that they are seen in their vulnerability.
Yeah.
And so, you know, our producers do a fantastic job. We have a team that's committed to that. And we will always, you know, tell the stories that we think, again, allow us to play it out as it does. 100%.
Thanks, Chris. Daysha, similar to reality shows, documentaries also, it says may also find their way in post. I think they always find their way in post. Is there a moment where the direction or the message of the AI doc shifted significantly as you guys were moving along in the cutting room? Or the multiple moments?
Multiple moments. I started out in reality TV eons ago, and it's not always so that you don't force the situation. That's why I kind of brought that up, because I think that's actually really admirable that on a show where people are like being vulnerable and trying to find love, you guys aren't creating weird characters out of them by forcing things to happen. So I thought that's really nice, actually. But the AI doc because the news was changing so often, we would often have to correct course in a way. But also, it took us a while. I mean, we knew we were going to follow Daniel as the protagonist, but because both of our co-directors, Daniel and Charlie, found out that their wives were pregnant at the same time, and that their due dates were within a week of each other.
Wow.
And so...
Must have been a good dinner party.
It was... Actually, my interview was like a 3-hour conversation at a very long table with Daniel Kwan and Paul Rogers, who edited Everything Everywhere All at Once, and those two directors and the producers. And I thought I was, going to have to go in and kind of pitch myself, but they, for like a long time, just kind of talked at me about this, about this technology and what they wanted to do with the movie, and in such a passionate way that I was just in.
Right.
And I, was like, "Do you want to know anything about me?" But so we always, from that conversation, it was clear that we were going to follow Daniel, and the movie was going to be about what kind of world we're leaving our children.
Yeah.
That was the kind of basis, the thesis of it was that. However, how we went about that in the edit changed every week, sometimes every day. At one point we called upon our friends and who were expecting children and we had them like send us Zoom videos and interviewed them about AI and how they feel about it, because we just wanted everyday people to kind of talk about this thing that was going to affect them, and because we knew we were going to talk to experts and CEOs of the people. We knew we were going to talk to the people building this technology, but we wanted to talk to real people. So we, at one point, that's how the movie started. The movie does not start like that anymore, and none of those Zoom calls are in the movie anymore.
Wow.
And now it's, Daniel's wife is in it way more than she was before, and she's actually narrating a lot of it.
Wow.
Things just kind of evolved because you're on this quest to tell the story in the best way possible.
Yeah.
And because everything is constantly changing, our direction changed quite often. And I was on the movie for almost a year, and then Davis Kuhn took over after that when I went on to another project. And then he was on it for almost 2 years.
Wow.
And it was still that. It was still very much trying to find the best way to do it, because things would just come up.
Right.
And it's like, oh, this is now happening. This would be a good, this is now happening in the news. This would be a great way to connect to this part of the movie. And so we have to try to figure out how to fit it in. And then you fit it in, and then it's like, that's too much. Now it's too much. Now we need to move on. We need to move on to this quicker. Oh, but we really want to touch on as much as we can, which is impossible in a movie that has to be under 2 hours, and it's about this giant thing.
And at some point, you have to stop working on it, too.
At some point, we all have to go home.
Right, yeah.
Which, some of us did, some of us didn't. Some of us are still mentally there. I'm
Some are still there.
But yeah, it changed. It changed as often as the news changed. To be honest.
John, with Starfleet Academy centered on cadets in training, how do you balance editing character-driven storytelling with the scale and spectacle that fans expect of the Star Trek universe?
The comment, the quote, I'm going to go back actually to the original question, which is, what do you look for? And I said, finding the magic.
Oh, yeah.
I think it's interesting. I'm hearing it in all of the answers. Thelma Shoemaker has a quote that I'll paraphrase, but it basically is that a film reveals itself in the editing room.
Yeah.
And I mean that she's smarter than I am, and I should probably just go with that. But I'm gonna riff on it a little bit and say there's an old adage that the fix it in post, and I've done directing, and I've done producing, and I've done a lot of editing, and I don't agree with fix it in post. But there's some real truth there. It's you discover it in post.
Yeah.
The film is discovered in post. Until it's in the editing room, until it's cut, you don't really know what the film is. And so a lot of the spectacle that we have in Star Trek is written to be amazing. I mean, starship battle above a planet, and, there's a meteor that's going to wipe out a village. And I mean, it could be anything. On actually Starfleet Academy at the very beginning, you have Paul Giamatti as effectively a space pirate, lassoing the Academy spaceship Athena while it's in transit and holding it hostage. On paper, this is huge. And it's so exciting to read it in the script. And then it's so exciting to see it in the storyboards. And then you start working with the VFX team, and they're showing you previs, and you're like, oh my God, this is so amazing. And then you get into it, and you start putting it together in the cutting room. And what you start to realize is that as exciting as all of that is, none of it really matters until you care about the characters that it's happening to. And so you end up coming back to, how do we ground this experience in the point of view of the characters and their experience of what is happening? And so the trick is balancing the storytelling techniques of showing what's happening, which is inherently objective to some degree. I mean, when you pop outside and you see one spaceship grappling another spaceship, that's an objective shot, right? That's not somebody looking out their window and seeing it happen. It's an objective shot. That said, what you really want to do is you really want to feel that moment and how it's impacting the characters that are the students. This is their first day on campus, and they're being attacked by space pirates. Like that's what you want to care about. That's where the real spectacle is.
Yeah.
And so the trick is combining the huge visual effect and sound design and all the different toys that we have to play with to tell the story. Combine it with the most authentic, grounded performance from the actors, and we have incredible actors. I mean, for Starfleet Academy, we had Paul Giamatti and Holly Hunter as the anchor pieces to this cast. I mean, we have Oscar winners who are showing up and doing amazing work in a setting that is, by its very nature, kind of spectacular. Like it's and I don't want to say supernatural, but it's really incredible settings. And you've got people who are trying to take that and bring it down and make it a very human, relatable experience. And that's one of the things. Like I know Holly, I've been fortunate enough to spend some time on set. When we were doing Starfleet Academy, I was actually editing the first block of episodes. So the episodes 1 and 2, I was actually on set as they were shooting those episodes, and I was cutting it with the director. And then, and so I can tell you that the way like Holly works, for example, is she'll work through the scene, and in the same way that the editors discover the film as it comes in the cutting room, she'll discover the scene on the fly, and it can be a real challenge, in quotes, for the editors, because sometimes she'll find the scene along the way,
right?
And then you have to go back and like everything that came before that doesn't really serve where you ended up, and so you have to go and find a way to get back to, like, whatever Holly decided halfway through, it's usually before that. She normally finds it long before, but sometimes she finds it on the fly, and then you've got to go back and you've got to be very judicial about what pieces you're going to use, because you have to be true to whatever she's found. She's usually captured a little piece of magic. When she finds it, she's found it, and it's incredible. And what you don't want to do is you don't want to spoil whatever magic she created by putting something that wasn't magic in it and mix it up.
I love that. I love that you said that. It's one of the things that I love about the art of post-production is that it's so supportive, is that everyone's layering, this will help that work better. Old boss of mine used to say, well, you polish over here so it'll get shiny over here. He would say that after preview screenings. Yeah. Anyway, let's go to, we're moving down the row, as you guys can see. Joy, you begin developing themes long before episodes are even finished. What does that early world building process look like? How does it shape the storytelling once the visuals start to arrive?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in animation, a lot of times composers are brought on very early in the process, especially just to be part of the world building, because a lot of times the music and animation is the voice of the characters. So it was a luxury for me as a composer to being brought on a year before. Wow. And that was like my year of really diving in deep to the story, because WondLa is based off of a children's trilogy by Tony Giudicelli. I've pretty much read all 3 books in one weekend and was obsessed, and then read all the scripts and had lots and lots of meetings with the filmmakers and just discussing, who are these characters and what are these characters inspired by. And WondLa is such a diverse and colorful world. Like every location, every alien tribe is inspired by a different culture. So having those conversations early on really just informed what instruments that I want to use, what are the palettes, what are the sound palettes, and I think that kind of creates a very unique soundscape for each different locations we travel to, and it again just kind of like connects us back to the main character, and we follow along her journey. And it was very important to also have a theme for our main character, Eva 9, and that character evolves in 3 seasons, and you see her grow and develop to become the hero that she is. So it was very exciting for me to also develop the themes and seeing how it changes and develops and darkens and becomes hopeful in all 3 different seasons. And it ended up being like I was very attached to the characters, very attached to the story. So when the season ended after 3 years, it was, I definitely felt like saying goodbye to like a friend, because you're so connected to this world that you built. And everyone really put their heart and soul into the show, so I'm very proud of it.
Oh, that's great. Yeah, that emotional connection and understanding is such a wonderful thing. As you're, on the 30th time you're passing through a project, you're like, this means something to me. Yeah. Kristen, you worked across both live-action projects like Finding Joy and Sisters, and an animated series like A Personal Favorite, Adventure Time. How does your approach to composing shift between those 2 worlds in post-production?
Yeah, I think Joy also just spoke so beautifully about the role with a composer in an animated series. I think the intention is always, it really is the same. It's to serve the story. And I think with animation, shows like Adventure Time really allow you to kind of go a bit crazy. Like you can really try things, you can experiment with a lot of different things, you can punctuate moments a little bit more forward. And with live action, you have to be a little bit more selective, I think, where that happens. It really comes to understanding the story and also just not taking away, because as composers, we love to write music. Surprise. But we love to write music, so it's really understanding like where to shift and making sure that what we're writing and where we're placing it, and the amount of music that we're putting is really serving the greater purpose of the story.
Right. And that's interesting. I love that. Again, like I think almost everybody's mentioned, there's the mountain of things you create and might use, and then what you distill it down to. Max, you're dealing with a rich universe of characters and lore. How do you use themes and motifs in post-production to track character arcs and deepen the audience's connection to the story in The Witcher, while also trying to not use any music?
Right,
as you said earlier.
Of course, no music. No, I mean, on The Witcher, we actually write so much music, and we follow a fairly traditional leitmotif, character theme approach on the show, and the producers really like that approach. So, main characters, less main characters, and factions all have these themes that have to be, we stay very loyal to, when they are on screen or they are the main person, that POV, we are typically very loyal to those themes. And God, writing themes is so hard, as I'm sure you guys can relate. I feel like it's one of those things that when you get it right, or you hear a great theme, it feels really obvious. Like, of course it's that. It was always that. It was that before it was invented. Yeah. But I think, I certainly go through so many iterations before landing on that thing that does feel right. And sometimes, I definitely still work in progress for me. But yeah, we've now got this, big arsenal of themes for all of these people. And I think one of the fun things about TV, especially compared to film, is how long you get to live with these characters and these pieces of music, and how much you get to develop them over, like in our case, 5 seasons of TV, many hours of material, and some of these characters change dramatically over the course of these seasons. I mean, in The Witcher, Ciri, who I would argue is the main character of the show, starts as this youthful, innocent girl, and we see her mature, we see her enter a darker phase, and then later a more heroic phase. So I think, I'm really proud, we are really proud of the theme we have for her and how we've developed that over the seasons, and being able to recontextualize it in these softer ways. We use a lot of vocals for Ciri, which can be like these very discreet, subdued, elegant form of expression, but also can be this very aggressive, like grand illustration. And especially these last 2 seasons, she is in this like darker place, and it's been really fun to explore taking this thing that was innocent and had this naivety a few seasons ago, like how can we make this feel really dark, but it's the same melody and the same core idea. And I'm really proud of how we've done that.
I have a similar unscored character arc just in my biography. If any of you guys are free, I'm looking for some theme music. All right, this one's to anybody up there. In your own thoughts, why would you say post-production is so important and crucial to the final project? And how does it ultimately shape what audiences experience on screen? And I like that audience experiences on screen piece in particular. Anybody who wants to take it? John's in.
I'm just going to reiterate, I think the film is discovered in post-production.
Yeah.
The audience one of the things that I think is consistent with editors and great editors that I know is that they are generally pretty empathic people, and it's interesting. So I've done a little bit of teaching, and you get a bunch of faculty people together, and you got your directing faculty over here, and you got your cinematography faculty over here, and you got your editing faculty over here. And it's really interesting because I would argue you can tell what somebody teaches based on how they act in a room before you know what they actually teach. And it's interesting because directors generally have a very specific agenda. And the DPs disagree with that agenda, almost by definition. And the editors generally are the people that are trying to bring everyone together at the table. Yeah. So I think that editors generally are empathic, and they have a knack for understanding how people are feeling. And so I think that's why they are especially good at this helping to discover what the film is.
Yeah.
Because they can see the footage, and they can put themselves into the place of the audience and help that process of discovery along until you suddenly have what the film is.
Yeah. Anybody else? Audience experience?
That was a great answer.
Yep. Yeah.
That was a beautiful answer.
Yeah. Post-production is kind of where a project stops becoming footage and starts becoming the point of view. 100%.
Oh, I like that. Post-production is where it stops becoming footage and a point of view. It's good.
I would also say, like, to throw a little visual out there for anybody else who's visual. I always see production as kind of like you're baking the cake. You put all the ingredients together, you put it in the oven, and then you take it out, and then we go into post-production, which is like maybe adding a bit more depth of flavor with your icing choice, and then your decorations on top, and you're like, maybe that doesn't work. Okay, maybe it needs to be like this or that, or I don't know. Take that with a grain of salt, please. But yeah, it all is like this cohesive piece, but a lot of things that are already given to us are already kind of set, and so we're just taking this cake that's already been baked, and we're just like, okay, how do we like make sure like people love this and like want to eat it?
Right. Yeah. Is it cake even? I mean, but I completely agree with that, because you can shape the. You can shape the, if you circle pan, square pan, folks, we have a lot of it. All right. Anybody else want to jump on the audience piece? Because I've got another one for you. Looking back at your work, this is for the gang, what's something you're especially proud of that audiences might not immediately notice, but means a lot to you? If anyone's familiar with that series, Invisible Arts, Visible Artists, post-production really is that. It's there's a lot of invisible works.
Oh, I got one.
Oh yeah, go Daysha.
You guys, I got one.
Yeah.
So I worked on a movie in 2022 called I Want to Dance with Somebody. It's a movie about Whitney Houston. My assistant editor is actually here. His name is Josh. I want to embarrass him. It's the guy right there. Hey, Josh. There is a scene in the movie. Well, first, I'm proud of the ending. She does the medley, and you'll do an editor's cut on a film. Mm-hmm. You'll do kind of your first shot at it. Then you'll do the director's cut. Then the producers, and then you'll test the movie, and that's awful, by the way. And then the movie ends up being this iteration of what you had before. Right. But the end of that movie, the medley where she's performing, is exactly my editor's cut.
That's awesome.
It did not change, besides some VFX shots that we added in of the crowd and things like that. But what people don't know is there is one scene in the film, we were having an issue getting to the third act. We needed a better turn for Whitney's character. And we had a scene where she got a phone call from Robin, who was her estranged best friend / lover. And she's vacuuming, and she goes and she looks at the phone. She doesn't answer it. And that was the whole scene. But we needed a better turn to get us to the end of her life. So I removed the phone in temp VFX. I put a TV there instead. And I had her instead over here on the TV, people talking crap about her. Because in that part of her life, people were talking really bad about her voice, like saying she lost it.
Right, yeah, I remember that.
So I put news reels of that on the TV. So she stops vacuuming. She walks over to not a phone, but the TV. And because Naomi Ackie is a phenomenal actress, I had all of this stuff to cut to.
Right.
Where it felt like she was listening to the TV, and she was really disappointed. And now she feels like she's going to go show them. So she goes to the Grammys. But no one will ever know that.
That's incredible.
In the movie, she just looks at a TV, and you think she's looking at a TV.
I love that.
Yeah.
That's great. Anybody else got one of those magical things that you created?
I would say that, when I got started in entertainment, I worked on the music side. I worked for an indie record label out of Huntington Beach called Fearless Records. And one of the artists I got to work with was Portugal the Man. So whenever I could bring those artists' music into a show like Love is Blind, for you guys, it might just feel like a really good song choice.
Yeah.
But for me, it represents a full circle moment. So it's a good way to connect a lot of my past work with my current.
That's wonderful.
So that brings a lot of value.
That's wonderful. I was working on this film, and the editor had temped in all this music. I was like, I know this band. No one knows this band. I've been listening to them for 20 years. He goes, it's my band. We were like hugged. It was really, anyway, great moment. Okay, to wrap up, and I think this is a good one, what piece of advice would you give to creatives making their way in the industry? We'll start with Max and come towards me.
Singling me out. Someone over there mentioned authenticity earlier, but I that's the thing I think about a lot, especially recently, but always. I think that the more true you can be to yourself, the better chance you have of standing out. And I think in the end, being a chameleon can only get you so far. Like, I feel like we all have something very authentic to give, and the more work that I do, the more I'm thinking about that for myself. Like, what's the truest form of my own expression that I can offer? And I think the closer that I can get to that, the more I feel my work is unique and speaking for itself and differentiating myself from other things that are out there. So
that's beautiful, Max. Anybody else?
I agree with that, and I also feel like it's important to network, and it's important to get into rooms so that people can get to know you, and all of that is good. But if you don't know what you're doing when you get there, it's a problem. I think a lot of people play the game to try to get the thing that they want, but they forget to do the homework.
Yeah.
People will find out as soon as you get the job. So
that's right.
You have to stay ready, and that doesn't mean just getting in the space, but learn your craft. All of us have a craft that we're very passionate about, and we take care of, and we've studied. And it doesn't mean we went to school, and some of us did, but it means we study the craft, and people notice that. People notice your authenticity. People notice that you're educated about the thing you want to do.
Yeah.
So it's important to do that.
Beautiful. I think Joy, were you going to say something? Oh, I thought I saw you.
Oh no, I was just gonna echo what Max said. It's filmmakers love when you come with a perspective and trust in your story, trust in your experience. You do have a story to tell, and I think whenever we get to make music or being part of the filmmaking process with your friends, that it's so much more enjoyable when you get to enjoy the process.
Yeah, for sure. John, and then Kristen.
There's a bit of homework that I like to, if I'm talking to a student who's getting ready to graduate, or I'm talking to someone who's working on their career, I have a little bit of homework that I add to every that I add to the first time I talk to anybody, and it's very simple. It's 2 top 10 lists. I'm a big fan of the book and the movie High Fidelity, so that's probably where it came from. But basically, the first list is a list of 10 pieces of art and media that have really touched you, that have just that are specific to you, that are perfect. For me, it'd be the White Stripes Elephant album, and Indiana Jones and the Last Crusade, and Ansel Adams' Fiat Lux, right? There's just there's 10 things that are perfect art for me. So it's your first list. And your second list is the 10 fantasy jobs in the history of your career, in the history of your industry, that you would feel satisfied with your life if you could have done. So for example, cinematographer on Citizen Kane. model shop supervisor on Star Wars, right? Whatever they are, those two top 10 lists, put them side by side, and that is a way to triangulate where your greatest passion is. And if you can just keep that in mind as you make decisions throughout your career, you're going to if you keep in mind where your passion is, you'll find yourself in positions on projects to express that passion. And if you're the most passionate person available if you're working on something you truly love, you're going to bring more to the job than somebody who doesn't truly love it, and you're going to find success that way. So that's the bit of advice that I give young people starting off in this career.
I love that.
Do those two top 10 lists. It's a little bit of homework, and it's a good exercise, and it's fun.
Yeah, I love that. Kristen, you got a quick one?
Yes, mine is really quick. Kind of playing off of what everyone else said. This is more for people that are really at the beginning stages, but really just creating as much as possible. It sometimes can be discouraging sometimes when your skill level and maybe your taste level are at different levels. So it's just so important to just create and really fall in love in your craft, and that can get you really, really far. I think one thing that all of us have in common is that we love what we do. So giving yourself space to really fall in love with your craft and your art form is so important to really bringing something truly unique and beautiful into this industry.
That's lovely. All right. Thank you all very much. That's all the time we have for today. So thanks to our panelists, Chris, Daysha, John, Joy, Kristen, and Max. Thank you very much. Thank you to Impact 24 and Comic-Con for putting this panel on.